Welcome in, everybody. I'm Will. A lot of you guys have seen me on other social medias as Dr. Profit. If you're here from subscribing to the NFL content, NFL season is over. We got a lot of NBA left in the season, so it's going to be a lot more daily content. I'm going to handle more of the daily content, and then JJ's going to handle more of the long form, in depth content a few times a week. So, part of that daily content is going to be finding the primetime games in each NBA slate and breaking it down just like we used to do for NFL. I'll go over everything I think you guys need to know, and then at the end, I will give my favorite picks and or parlays. So for those who are new here, again, it's going to be daily, so make sure you like and subscribe, and let's get into it. So I want to start this off by saying I haven't done any research on the day yet. The whole point of this is I want you guys to see exactly what I'm looking at and see the research that I'm doing as I'm doing it. So let's start off with Oklahoma City and Orlando. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off looking at just the assists and rebounds real quick. The more in-depth part is when we look at points. So we'll look at last 15 games, what they're allowing to their opponent. And we can see for the Thunder, they're pretty middle of the pack when it comes to allowing assists. And for Orlando, they are allowing some of the least assists in the NBA. And the more we look into the shooting and everything, we will see why. As far as the offensive and defensive rebounds go, Orlando allows the 10th least offensive rebounds per game in the last 15 games, and the Thunder are allowing the 10th most. So that's also good to know. Now let's get into some of the shooting components. So what I do, this is all on the NBA website, by the way. We go to opponent shooting, and we'll go to general. So first off, we will look at catch and shoot and how teams are doing against catch and shoot. And again, we'll go to the last 15 games. I think anything beyond that, you're looking at games that don't matter too much for the sample size. And then anything like 10 games or less, it's like that's where it gets to be a little too small of a sample size. So we'll look at last 15 games. And we can see catch and shoot 3-point attempts allowed. In terms of attempts per game, the Thunder are slightly worse than middle of the pack. And then Orlando are allowing some of the least, which goes to show why they allow such a small amount of assists, because a lot of assists go to catch and shoot threes. So if you're not allowing a lot of catch and shoot threes, you're probably not allowing a lot of assists. Now, the other thing we can look at is catch and shoot 3-point frequency, which is basically of the field goal attempts that the other team allows, what percentage of them are catch and shoot threes. And again, we go Thunder, they're pretty high. Orlando, they're still relatively low, but they're closer to the middle when you look at frequency. Basically meaning they don't allow a lot of field goal attempts to begin with. It's slower paced games with them. So even though they're allowing a small amount of catch and shoot 3-point attempts, when you compare it to the total amount of field goal attempts they're allowing, it's really not that bad. Now, let's go to pull-ups field goal attempts. So pull-up twos, we can see Orlando. For this one, they are among the highest, and if we sort by frequency, they go even higher. So you want to target people who excel in the mid-range against Orlando. On the Thunder side, they're also up there. Their frequency is a little bit lower, but not by too much. So pull-up shooters are going to do well against Orlando, especially in the mid-range. Now let's go to three-point shooting. Orlando, again, among one of the higher ones when it comes to pull-up threes allowed. And again, they go higher when you look at frequency. On the Thunder side, not very high at all. Only 9.5 frequency allowed, 8.2 attempts allowed per game. So first, the Thunder, you want to target guys who get into the mid-range and pull up rather than guys who pull up beyond the arc. For Orlando, it doesn't matter. If they're a pull-up shooter, they're probably going to get a lot of volume against Orlando. Now, the highest quality shot on the court, shots within 10 feet of the basket. And this is where you'll see a lot the difference between some of the better and worse defenses. As you can see, Wizards, Jazz, Spurs, Raptors, Celtics are surprising to be here, but Pistons, these are some of the lower tier NBA defenses. Then we go here, Bulls, Pelicans, Magic, Timberwolves, Miami Heat, Warriors, defenses that you tend to consider to be a little bit better. It is surprising to see the Atlanta Hawks on here this low, but not every statistic's perfect. So again, we can look Orlando. As you can see, they allow the third least shots within 10 feet of the basket. If you go to frequency, it goes to fifth least. On the other hand, we go to the Thunder, and we see they're about middle of the pack in frequency, a little lower or a little better than middle of the pack. And then if we go to field goal attempts, they're pretty solid. And one thing that I want to mention from watching film of the Thunder is they're really good at stopping driving lanes. But that's also why they allow a lot of catch and shoot threes, because when you stop a driving lane, it's usually because somebody's coming in to help stop the lane. When somebody does that, it means somebody else is open for the three and the defense has to rotate. Um, so that's what we can make note of on the Thunder side. So to sum up the shooting, we want to target pull-up shooting against Orlando. And versus the Thunder, I'd say catch and shoot threes and pull-up twos. Excuse me. So the next thing we can go and look at is play types. So we can check defensively, how does each team do against ISOs? And we can come to score frequency. Orlando allows the second highest score frequency in ISOs. Does that, like, we're talking about pull-up shooting versus Orlando, so that shouldn't surprise anybody. But we're talking about pull-up shooting versus Orlando. They can't defend the ISO. Tell me that doesn't sound like Shea. They actually have the worst percentile as well, basically meaning they allow the most points per possession in isolation possessions. So that's something that we should definitely be making note of. Meanwhile, the Thunder, they're on the complete opposite side. They are the best, the most efficient defense against the ISO, and I believe in terms of score frequency, they're also really low. So teams that rely on the ISO are going to have a lot more trouble against Oklahoma City Thunder. And like I said, that's because they're really good at stepping into driving lanes. Now we can go to transition. And for this one, I don't like to look at efficiency as much. I like to look at the amount of points they let up, because naturally transition possessions are going to be higher quality. You're running full speed at the basket. So it's more about how frequently teams let them do it rather than how often they let them score when they do it. So we can see here points in transition allowed on the season. Orlando, closer to the bottom, but pretty close to the middle. Nothing to make note of there. Meanwhile, the Thunder, they do not allow a lot of transition points at all. So I'll make note of that one real quick. OKC, very good first transition and ISO. And Orlando's very bad versus ISO. And I'm making these notes so we don't forget at the end when we go over our plays. Now we can go to the pick and roll ball handler defensively. So this is going to be your Shea, your Bankero doesn't. The Magic don't have people that run the pick and roll that much, but let's cross our T's and dot our I's. Score frequency. We can look at Orlando, middle of the pack. Efficiency is below average allowed, so nothing to be scared of, nothing to target either, if you ask me. Meanwhile, the Thunder, they are one of the better pick and roll defenses against the ball handler in the NBA. Now we can go to the roll man and check the same thing. So Orlando, again, middle of the pack, slightly below average defense against it. And then we can go Thunder. Again, elite, third best team efficiency-wise, third best team in terms of score frequency. So we don't want to target the roll man against Thunder. For the most part, you're looking at Wendell Carter Jr. But again, it's not like the Magic are hammering pick and rolls like the Mavs and the Hawks. So we can go to handoff, which doesn't matter as much for this game, but for the next game, it's going to be really important when we look at our Sabonis and our Nurkic's. So Orlando, actually one of the worst handoff teams in the NBA. I think that's ninth worst in terms of efficiency. So if we had a Jamal Murray or a De'Aaron Fox or someone like that, then they'd be worth targeting there. On the Thunder side, however, they, again, are one of the best. So this Thunder defense is like, there's a reason that they're so high in the West right now, and it's because of stuff like this. And I want to check something real quick, because I remember targeting, yeah. So they're about the 12th, 13th worst defense versus pick and roll man. Because I remember targeting hero assists because of the pick and roll and the screens against Orlando recently. So I wanted to check on that. So let me make sure that there's nothing else that we need to go over before we move on to the next game. I think that's everything I wanted to touch on. And I'll get into, like, this isn't 100% all I research when I go into games. Like, there's more stuff than this, but this is the stuff that no matter what game I'm looking at, I look at every single one of these as my basis, and then I go from there. So for the sake of making these videos efficient and keeping you guys in tune, I'm going to leave it there, go to the next game. So let's do it. So we got Sacramento and Phoenix. So here we go. General opponent, last 15 games. Let's go Sacramento. Let's do Kings. So the Kings are allowing some of the most assists per game right now. And again, we will get into why very soon. And on the Suns side, they're also allowing the 11th most. In terms of offensive rebounds per game, the Kings are allowing the second least, and the Suns are allowing the second most. Also very important to note. Now let's go into the shooting aspects. So opponent shooting general, we'll start with catch and shoot, and we'll go last 15 games. So the Kings, at least last I checked, they're very high in the catch and shoot threes allowed department. They are 3, 6, 8th most allowed attempts, 3rd most allowed makes, and in terms of frequency, they're also up there. I want to say that's 7th. So target your catch and shoot threes against Sacramento. I'll make notice of that as well. And on the Sun side, I think they're slightly below average in terms of frequency and attempts and makes. So in my opinion, it's not something to target, but it's something to make note of if you like a player's line and you're like, okay, they're a catch and shoot player. How does this team do against catch and shoot? Basically making it so you're not scared of it. Now let's go to pull-up shooting. And this is one that I do want to outline because, this has changed a lot recently. The Suns used to be a lot higher on this ranking for catch and shoot, or for pull-up twos allowed, because of the drop coverage that Nurkic likes to play. But it seems like lately they've been heading in the opposite direction. So that's a good thing to make note of. On the Kings side, they're also pretty low. They allow a bit higher efficiency, but I usually determine the efficiency, like the field goal percentage, depending on the player rather than the defense when it comes to pull-up shooting. So I look at more on the attempts allowed. And we can look at frequency. We can see Kings are here, and then Suns should be much lower, 13.4. Now we can go to threes. We can go Suns, slightly below average in terms of field goals attempts allowed. And then Kings, they don't allow a lot of pull-up threes. So basically all the threes that the Kings allow, it's going to be catch and shoot. It's not going to be a lot of pull-up shooting. And honestly, that's not great for the Suns when you have KD, Beal, Booker. You want a team that allows a lot of pull-up shots because that's how they're going to get a lot of their work. So now we can go to play types. You can see how each team does against ISO. Suns, they are pretty average, actually, like literally right on the average in terms of efficiency. And we can go Kings. They are one of the best in the NBA at defending the ISO, which again makes sense why they allow a lot of catch and shoot threes, because if they're stopping the ISO, showing help on the drive, that means the kickouts will always be there. Now in transition, the Suns are their efficiency is good, but in terms of the points allowed per game, they're pretty average. And then the Kings, one of the best in the NBA. So we want to, against the Kings, what we're looking at so far, we want to target catch and shoot, avoid pull-up shooters, and avoid players that rely on transition plays. It just occurred to me that we forgot to check shots within 10 feet of the basket, so let's go do that real quick and then come back. So general shots less than 10 feet and last 15 games. This is the first video. I'll get better at this, I promise. So We can start from the bottom. The Kings are one of the best in the NBA in terms of some of the least field goal attempts allowed within 10 feet. The Suns, on the other hand, where are they? They're slightly worse in middle of the pack. So those are two things to make note of, but nothing absolutely crazy, and nothing that's too surprising based on what we've seen so far. So back to play types. Let's go to pick and roll, ball handler. So in terms of score frequency this season, the Suns are middle of the pack in terms of, or actually they're allowing high score frequency, 11th worst percentile, if I'm not mistaken. So taking your pick and roll guards against them is fair game. On the Kings side, they're actually right behind them in efficiency and score frequency. So both are fair game for targeting pick and roll ball handlers. Now the roll man in the pick and roll. We can go Suns, bang average. Kings, also bang average. Or actually their efficiency is really bad. So that has to mean if the score frequency is this close to the middle, but their efficiency is this bad, I'd be willing to bet that means pick and pop shooters have pretty good success against them, because that's really the only way that makes sense. So let's go to handoffs. And this is always, or for me at least, this is going to be one of the most important ones for the Suns, because if they allow a lot of handoffs, that means not Nurkic, or both teams actually, they both run it a lot. A lot of handoffs mean a lot of assists to the centers just by handing it off and having an uncontested pull-up. So let's check score frequency. The Kings are second worst in the NBA. That's going to be really good for both Nurkic assists and anybody who runs the handoff with Yusuf Nurkic. On the Suns side, they are actually one of the best. So that's not good for Sabonis, not good for your Keegan Murrays, your Kevin Huerters. I bet it's going to be a lot more De'Aaron Fox in the pick and roll than it will be Huerter and Keegan Murray off the handoffs. And if you want, we can do this real quick. We can check on the players that run the handoffs so you guys can get an idea on how much they do run it. We can check possessions per game. You see Huerter and Murray are top of the list. And then Tyler Hero running it with Bam Adebayo, Jamal Murray running it with Jokic. That's very important to note. And while Fox is also fairly high on this list, the frequency is much lower for him. Like you see frequency of plays 27.3 and 20%. For Fox, that's only 7% of his plays. So that doesn't scare me off of Fox. Now, if we want to look at which Phoenix players are running it the most, we're looking at Kevin Durant, also a low frequency, Booker, low frequency. But so when it's this spread out, because all three of them are getting handoff work, I'd rather just take Nurkic assists. So that's really how I'd attack that. I wouldn't try and pick which one of these is going to excel, especially when the pull-up shot is technically not a good matchup for them, but the handoff is. So, because you never know, he could be running it with Grayson Allen a couple possessions too. You can get an assist or two that way. So I would take Nurkic assists. I would take that over predicting which Suns player is going to get the handoff. So I believe that is everything we can analyze from those two games. We made note of Orlando not allowing a lot of assists. So what we can do is we can check potential assists. We go over the last 5 games for Oklahoma City Thunder. If anybody is over efficient, then we can target their under assists. Shea's getting a lot of assist opportunities. Same with Jalen Williams. I'd avoid both of those. Josh Giddey, he's not getting a lot of opportunity. He's not getting a lot of assists. I think that's an under we can target depending on where the line is set at. But that's probably the only one I'd target based off everybody else's efficiency. And then we can target putbacks for, I believe it was, who was it? I'm blanking. I think the Suns allow a lot of putbacks. So we can check where Sabonis has been ranking in the offensive rebound department. So Sabonis, he's averaging 6.4 offensive rebound chances per game with only 43% efficiency in bringing them in. We can check how that compares to his full season to see if he's doing better or worse than his normal numbers right now. So he's getting less opportunities with the same efficiency right now. And then we can check his putback efficiency as well here. So points per game off putbacks. Where's Sabonis ranking here? About only possessions. So that he's getting about 2.3 points per game off putbacks. 70th percentile when you look at the frequency he's doing it. Doesn't move the needle too much for me, but against a team that's bad against offensive rebounding, might be worth a look. Especially, I know PrizePicks has squares for defensive rebounds. I assume they have it for offensive rebounds too. That's something to make note of. And we can check how many offensive rebounds he has been getting as well. We're looking at that 2.8 per game. So, yeah, there you go. If he has a line at 2.5 or 3.0, it might be worth a look. So that's everything that we can do there. Let's head over to Handy Dandy DraftKings and find some picks, shall we? So we'll go to NBA and OKC and Orlando. And like I said, Shea is probably your best bet in this matchup. The only other one we could look at is Giddey under assists at 3.5. Maybe with the plus money, I like it, but I probably would only take it if we got like 4.5 juiced under. That's probably the only way I'd think about it. And then Shea at 6.5 even is probably where it should be. He's getting 15 potential assists a game, which is super high. Normally that warrants a line around 7.5, maybe even 8.5. So this line being lower, it's accounting for that bad matchup. There's not really any value in it. You could take Banchero's line is obviously juiced a lot. Let me zoom in a little bit more for you guys. But that could be worth a shout. Markel Fultz, I think plus money there is solid value considering how bad they are against catch and shoot. Franz Wagner, I don't know that I'd play that line because I know a lot of his assists go to the rim with Wendell Carter Jr., which OKC defends really, really well. So, player points, I think Shea is your best bet here. I don't know that I'd play anything else in this game with confidence. Now we can go to this Suns and Kings game. First thing I want to check is Nurkic assists. Where is it? 3.5 plus money. I think that's really good. I was worried we were going to get 3.5 juiced over. So at plus money for 3.5, I think that's a great spot. The only other one I'd consider really is Fox points. I think that line is super low. He's in a good spot today, especially with Herter and Keegan Murray likely being in trouble with that handoff game being limited. I think they're going to have to lean on Fox a lot today. So we can do an SGP with those two and see what odds it gives us on those. And where are we with Nurkic? Here we are. So that'll put us at plus 574. And I think I'm not going to force anything else. I think I'm going to leave it at those three. So that's the parlay for you guys. I'll lock it in after this and post a picket for proof that I have it locked in. But outside of that, all we have left is the update of the day. And the update of the day that I have for you guys is we've been targeting guards against the Bucks all season due to the drop coverage from Brook Lopez. Obviously, that didn't work last game because of Jamal Murray. I went back and watched the film. That was 100% Jamal Murray's fault. He had no interest of playing that game. I don't know what was going with him. A lot of people are going to attribute it to Patrick Beverley. Patrick Beverley did not guard him. But the update of the day is Doc Rivers, after the game, was talking about how they made a very big effort in the film study with Malik Beasley and Damian Lillard talk about how to defend the pick and roll specifically. And he was like, I basically annoyed them and they didn't want to hear my voice because we hammered it into their heads so much. However, he didn't really talk about Brook Lopez and his drop coverage at all. So Brook Lopez and his drop coverage should remain consistent, but we'll see how much that film study affects things in the games going forward in terms of whether we can still keep targeting that matchup. I think as long as Brook Lopez is dropping, we can, but since they made such an effort to go ahead and attack that weakness in their defense, I think it's worth keeping an eye on so we know for sure. So that's the update for the day. Again, the parlay will be posted on Picket. You guys saw it on the screen. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. Again, this is the first one. If there's anything you guys want to see more of or you want me to do better, please let me know. I'm here doing this for you guys. So good luck today. I'll have a video later out with my picks explaining it with some in-depth analysis. I hope you guys enjoyed that as well. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys next video.